The gathering storm, a star system of Kepler 442, buzzed with alien activity as the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled near the fourth planet. Admiral Vex of the Draken Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as thousands of warships took their positions in perfect formation. The sight filled him with pride and certainty. "Status report," Vex commanded, his scaled hands gripping the command rail. "Sir, we have confirmed arrival of all allied fleets," reported his aide, Commander Thane. The Rixon Confederacy brought 800 ships. The Mollusk Collective deployed 600 vessels. The Crystal Hegemony contributed 400 of their finest cruisers. Combined with our own forces, we have over 3,000 ships ready for the assault. Vex nodded with satisfaction. The alliance had taken 2 years to organize, but finally, the greatest powers in the galaxy had united. For one purpose: to crush the upstart species. Called humanity before they could spread their dangerous influence any further, humans had appeared on the galactic stage only 50 years ago. Yet in that short time, they had managed to anger every major civilization. They refused to follow established trade protocols. They ignored territorial boundaries. They freed slaves from species that had practiced slavery for millennia. Most insulting of all, they claimed that all sentient beings deserved what they called basic rights. "Incoming transmission from Earth," announced the communications officer. "Put it through," Vex ordered. He expected to hear desperate pleas for mercy, perhaps offers of surrender. Instead, a calm human voice filled the bridge. "This is Captain Ross of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your ultimatum and your demands for our unconditional surrender. We reject them." The bridge fell silent. Vex's jaw tightened. "Human, you face the combined might of 3,000 warships. Your entire species numbers barely 8 billion across a dozen worlds. Surrender now, and we will allow you to live as servants." "Negative," Ross replied without hesitation. "We will meet your fleet at the designated coordinates in 72 hours. Come ready for war." The transmission ended. Vex's officers exchanged puzzled looks. Commander Thane cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, our intelligence reports suggest humans have at most 200 ships in their entire fleet. Surely they cannot mean to face us with such pathetic numbers." "Perhaps they plan to hide behind their orbital defenses," suggested the weapons. "Officer, human stations are known to be heavily armed." Vex dismissed their concerns with a wave of his hand. "It matters not. We have brought enough firepower to reduce their worlds to dust. If they wish to die as warriors rather than live as slaves, so be it. Signal all ships to begin final preparations." As the hours passed, the alien fleet made its final checks. Weapons were charged, shields were tested, and battle plans were reviewed. The commanders held confidence in their overwhelming numerical advantage. They had studied human military history and found it full of primitive conflicts and outdated tactics. These humans might be stubborn, but they were clearly outmatched. On the second day, long-range sensors detected movement from the direction of Earth. The fleet's science officer, a tentacled being named Krex, studied the readings with growing confusion. "Admiral," Krex called out, "I am detecting a single vessel approaching our position." "One ship?" Vex laughed. "Perhaps it carries a delegation to negotiate terms of surrender." "Sir, the vessel is maintaining a direct course toward our fleet at maximum speed. It shows no signs of slowing or attempting to communicate." Vex's amusement faded. "What class of ship is it?" Krex hesitated. "Unknown, sir. The sensor readings are ... unusual. The ship appears to be roughly the size of a heavy cruiser, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." "One ship," Vex repeated, his voice growing cold. "The humans send one ship to face 3,000. Are they mocking us?" Perhaps it's a trap, suggested Thane. Maybe they plan to use it as a distraction while their main fleet attacks from another direction. Continue monitoring for additional human vessels, Vex ordered. But maintain formation. Whatever game they are playing, we will not be drawn out of position. The alien commanders spent the remaining hours analyzing the approaching human ship, trying to understand its purpose. Some suggested it might be a massive bomb. Others theorized it could be carrying a diplomatic envoy. None of them considered the possibility that humanity had sent exactly what they needed to end the war before it truly began. As the human vessel drew closer, one thing became clear to everyone watching. Whatever the humans were planning, they were about to find out if their confidence was justified, or if they had just signed their own death warrant. The lone Guardian Captain Tom Ross stood alone on the bridge of the ESS Defiant, watching the massive alien fleet grow larger on his main screen. Behind him, his crew of 12 worked quietly at their stations, their faces showing no fear despite the impossible odds they faced. "Sir, we're detecting 3,014 enemy vessels," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kate Miller. "They're arranged in a standard battle formation, with their heaviest ships at the center." "Any signs of defensive positions around their flagships?" Ross asked calmly. "Yes, sir. The Draken flagship is protected by a ring of destroyers and cruisers, standard doctrine for most galactic militaries." Ross nodded. The aliens were following the same predictable patterns they had used for centuries. They relied on numbers, overwhelming, firepower, and traditional tactics. That would be their downfall. "Engineering, status report," Ross called out. "All systems green, Captain," came the reply from Chief Engineer Dave Park. "The new reactor is running at optimal efficiency. We have full power to all systems." "Good. Communications, open a channel to the alien fleet." The communication officer, Ensign Lisa Wong, worked quickly. "Channel open, sir. This is Captain Ross of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully." The response came swiftly. Admiral Vex's voice filled the bridge, full of anger and disbelief. "Human, you dare to threaten us with a single ship? We have 3,000 vessels. Your arrogance will cost your species dearly." "I'm not threatening you," Ross replied simply. "I'm giving you a choice. Leave now, or face the consequences." "The consequences?" Vex's laughter echoed through the speakers. "What consequences can one ship deliver against our entire fleet?" Ross looked around at his crew. Each of them had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return home. They represented the best of humanity, brave, determined, and willing to sacrifice everything for their people's freedom. "You're about to find out," Ross said quietly, then nodded to his communications officer to close the channel. The alien fleet began to move, spreading out in attack formation. Ross watched their movements with professional interest. They were competent but predictable, following ancient battle doctrines that had served them well against conventional enemies. "Sir, they're charging weapons," Miller reported. "All ships are targeting us. Let them come," Ross said. "Helm, take us straight toward their center formation. Full speed." The Defiant accelerated, its revolutionary engines pushing it far beyond the speed that conventional ships could achieve. The alien fleet's formation began to tighten as they prepared to focus their fire on the approaching human vessel. "Sir, shouldn't we be taking evasive action?" asked the young pilot, Ensign Mark Shun. "No need," Ross replied. "They can't hit what? They can't understand." As the Defiant closed the distance, the alien fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams and plasma bolts streaked toward the human ship, creating a deadly light show in the darkness of space. The bridge crew watched calmly as the weapons approached. "Defensive systems online," reported Miller. "Initiating countermeasures." What happened next defied everything the aliens thought they knew about space combat. The Defiant didn't dodge the incoming fire or raise energy shields. Instead, it seemed to simply ignore the weapons entirely. Energy beams passed through the ship as if it weren't there, while plasma bolts curved away at impossible angles. "Impossible," whispered Commander Thane aboard the alien flagship. "No ship can survive that barrage. The human vessel is undamaged." Krex reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Sir, I'm reading energy signatures that don't match any known technology." Admiral Vex stared at the tactical display, watching the lone human ship continue its approach unharmed. "What are they? Using some kind of advanced shielding?" "No, sir. It's something else entirely. The weapons aren't being blocked. They're being redirected somehow." As the Defiant reached the outer edge of the alien formation, Ross finally gave the order his crew had been waiting for. "Weapons systems. Online. Target the command ships of each faction." "Sir, weapons ready," Miller confirmed. Ross took a deep breath. Everything humanity had worked for over the past 50 years had led to this moment. The secret research, the hidden facilities, the breakthrough that would change everything. It was time to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. "Fire," he commanded. The Defiant's weapons systems activated, but instead of conventional energy beams or missiles, something entirely new emerged from the ship. The aliens watched in horror as reality itself seemed to bend around the human vessel, creating effects that their science couldn't explain or their technology couldn't counter. The war was about to take a turn that none of them had anticipated. The impossible weapon, the space around the Defiant, began to shimmer and distort as the ship's weapon system fully activated. Admiral Vex watched from his flagship as 3 distinct energy phenomena manifested around the human vessel, each one targeting a different section of his allied fleet. "Science officer, what are we looking at?" Vex demanded, his voice tight with growing concern. Krex worked frantically at his console, trying to make sense of the readings. "Sir, I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions. The human ship appears to be manipulating space-time itself." "That's impossible," Commander Thane protested. "No species has mastered that level of technology." Their argument was cut short as the first weapon effect reached the Rixon Confederacy's formation. Captain Ross had targeted their command cluster with something the aliens would later call a reality anchor. The weapon didn't destroy the ships in any conventional sense. Instead, it locked them in place, freezing them in space-time so completely that they couldn't move, couldn't fire, couldn't even communicate. "The Rixon ships have stopped responding," reported the communications officer. "They're not destroyed, but they're completely motionless." "Try to contact them," Vex ordered, but he already knew it would be useless. Whatever the humans had done, it had effectively removed 800 ships from the battle in an instant. The second weapon struck the Mollusk Collective's fleet moments later. This time, the effect was different, but equally devastating. The human ship seemed to project what could only be described as a perception void around the mollusk vessels. They simply vanished from all sensors, as if they had never existed. "Where did they go?" Thane asked, staring at the empty space where 600 ships had been floating just seconds before. "They're still there," Krex said, his voice filled with wonder and terror. "I can detect faint gravitational signatures, but every sensor we have insists that space is empty." "But that means they can't see us, and we can't see them," Krex finished. "The human weapon has cut them off from the battle entirely." The third weapon was the most spectacular. As it struck the crystal hegemony's formation, their ships began to phase in and out of normal space-time. One moment they were there, the next they flickered like ghosts, unable to maintain a solid existence in any single timeline. "Sir, the weapons officer called out, Our allies are requesting orders. They don't know how to fight an enemy that can manipulate reality itself. Vex looked at his tactical display. In less than 2 minutes, the human ship had effectively neutralized 2,000 of his 3,000 vessels without destroying a single one. The aliens were starting to understand that they weren't facing superior technology. They were facing something that operated on principles their science couldn't even comprehend. All ships focus fire on the human vessel, Vex ordered. Maximum firepower. We still have 1,000 ships. That has to be enough. The remaining alien vessels opened fire with everything they had. The space around the Defiant filled with deadly energy as plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes converged on the human ship. For a moment, it seemed as if the sheer volume of firepower might overwhelm whatever defenses the humans possessed. But Captain Ross remained calm. None? His bridge. Miller, activate the temporal displacement field. Yes, sir, the tactical officer replied. Field active. The alien weapons reached the Defiant's position and simply passed through empty space. The ship had shifted itself slightly out of phase. With normal time, allowing the weapons to strike where it had been a fraction of a second ago, rather than where it actually was. Direct hit on the human vessel, reported the Draken weapons officer, but his excitement quickly faded. Sir, the ship is undamaged. All weapons passed through it without effect. Vex felt a chill run through his scaled body. How is that possible? Humans aren't just using advanced technology, Krex said quietly. They're using something that shouldn't exist, according to everything we know about physics. Captain Ross studied the alien fleet's formation, noting how they were beginning to break apart as panic set in among the crews. The commanders were trying to maintain order, but their soldiers had never faced an enemy that could ignore the fundamental laws of reality. Communications. Open a channel to all ships, Ross ordered. When the channel opened, his voice carried across the entire battlefield. This is Captain Ross. You have seen what one human ship can do. You have thousands of worlds, trillions of citizens, and countless generations of history. We have no desire to see any of that destroyed. He paused, letting his words sink in. But we will not allow you to conquer us. We will not become your slaves. We will not abandon our principles. You have one final chance to withdraw peacefully. The silence that followed was deafening. 3,000 ships hung in space, their crews waiting for orders that their commanders were afraid to give. The breaking point. Admiral Vex stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed his fleet's impossible situation. 2/3 of his ships were neutralized by weapons that defied every law of physics he knew. The remaining vessels were helpless against a single human ship that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of reality. Admiral, Commander Thane said carefully, perhaps we should consider the humans' offer. Never, Vex snarled. We represent the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. We cannot be defeated by one ship crewed by primitives. But even as he spoke, Vex could see the doubt in his officer's eyes. The confidence that had carried them through 2 years of planning was cracking under the weight of the impossible. Sir, Krex reported, I'm detecting new energy signatures from the human vessel. They're charging some kind of weapon system. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Ross watched the alien fleet's formation with professional interest. The commanders were arguing among themselves, their communications channels buzzing with confusion and fear. Some ships were already beginning to withdraw, their crews unwilling to face whatever the humans might do next. Sir, Lieutenant Miller said, we're receiving private communications from several alien vessels. They're asking for safe passage out of the system. Let them go, Ross replied. We're not here to slaughter anyone. We're here to end this war. What about the flagships? Asked Ensign Chun. The command ships aren't backing down. Ross nodded. He had expected this. The alien leaders had invested too much in this campaign to retreat without a fight. Their pride and their political positions depended on victory. That made them dangerous, but it also made them predictable. "Helm, take us directly toward the Draken flagship," Ross ordered. "Nice and slow. Let them see us coming." As the Defiant approached Admiral Vex's command ship, the remaining loyal vessels formed a protective screen around it. They opened fire with everything they had, filling space with enough energy to vaporize a small moon. The human ship passed through the barrage as if it were flying through empty space. "Sir," the Draken weapons officer reported, "all weapons are having no effect. The human ship is maintaining course and speed." Vex felt sweat beading on his scales. What do they want? His answer came when the Defiant stopped directly in front of the flagship, close enough that the two bridges could have been connected by a short shuttle flight. Captain Ross's voice filled the Draken command center. "Admiral Vex, this is Captain Ross. You have a choice to make. You can continue this hopeless battle and watch your remaining ships get neutralized one by one, or you can accept that humanity will not be conquered and withdraw your forces." "You cannot defeat us all," Vex replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Even if you destroy my flagship, others will take command. Others will continue the fight." "Admiral," Ross said patiently, "we don't need to defeat you all. We just need to convince you that the cost of victory is too high." The Defiant's main weapon began to charge, creating a visible distortion in space around the human ship. But instead of targeting the Draken flagship, it aimed at a point in empty space between the two fleets. "Watch carefully," Ross said. Weapon fired, and reality itself seemed to tear open. A rift in space-time appeared, showing glimpses of other dimensions, other possibilities. Through the tear, the aliens could see versions of their own fleets destroyed, their worlds burning, their civilizations reduced to ash. Asterisk, what you're seeing, Ross explained, are the possible outcomes of continued warfare in every timeline. Where this conflict escalates, both sides lose everything. Your people, our people, everyone suffers. The rift expanded, showing more visions. Alien refugees fleeing their dying worlds. Human colonies abandoned and lifeless. Entire sectors of space empty of all life. The weapon wasn't just showing possible futures. It was showing the inevitable result of total war between advanced civilizations. "This is impossible," Krex whispered. "They're showing us alternate timelines." "Not alternate," Ross corrected. "Probable. If we continue down this path, these outcomes become more likely with each passing moment." Admiral Vex stared at the visions of destruction, seeing his own empire reduced to ruins. "What do you want from us?" "Peace," Ross said simply. "We want to be left alone to develop our own civilization. We want to trade with those who wish to trade with us. We want to help those who ask for our help. We don't want to rule anyone or be ruled by anyone. And if we refuse, then we'll defend ourselves," Ross replied. "We've shown you that we can neutralize your fleets without destroying them. But if you force us to escalate, if you threaten our worlds and our people, we will use whatever means necessary to protect them." The rift began to close, but not before showing one final vision. A galaxy at peace, with humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge and resources, building a better future for all species. "The choice is yours, Admiral," Ross said. "War or peace? Destruction or cooperation? What will it be?" The new dawn. The bridge of the Draken flagship fell silent as Admiral Vex processed what he had witnessed. The visions of destruction were fading, but their impact remained burned into his memory. Around him, his officers waited for orders that would determine the fate of not just their fleet, but potentially their entire civilization. "Sir," Commander Thane said quietly, "our long-range sensors are detecting movement from the human home." Systems. Multiple ships are approaching. Vex felt his heart sink. How many? Unknown, sir. They're using the same technology as the Defiant. Our sensors can't get accurate readings. Captain Ross's voice came through the communication system, calm and patient. Admiral, those ships aren't reinforcements. They're rescue vessels. Medical. Ships, transport ships, support vessels. They're coming to help repair the damage we've caused to your fleets and to escort you safely out of our territory. You're offering to help us? Vex asked, confusion clear in his voice. We told you we didn't want to destroy anyone, Ross replied. Your crews have been affected by our weapons, but the effects aren't permanent. We can reverse them all. Your people trapped in time can be freed. Your ships lost in the perception void can be restored. Your phased vessels can be returned to normal spacetime. And in return, you leave. You go back to your worlds and tell your people what you've seen. Here, you tell them that humanity offers friendship to those who want it, trade to those who need it, and help to those who ask for it. But we will not be conquered, enslaved, or controlled. Vex looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were seasoned warriors, veterans of a dozen campaigns. But in their eyes, he saw something he had never seen before, fear mixed with a grudging respect for their enemy. Sir, Krex said softly, I'm analyzing the energy signatures from the human rescue ships. They're carrying medical supplies compatible with our biology, spare parts for our ship classes, and what appears to be food suitable for all our allied species. They came prepared to help us, Thane realized. They knew this would happen. They knew we would surrender, Vex said, the words bitter in his mouth. No, Ross's voice corrected gently. We hoped you would choose wisdom over pride. There's a difference. The first human rescue ship arrived at the Rixon formation, its crew working quickly to reverse the time lock that had frozen the Confederate vessels. As the effects wore off, the Rixon ships began to move again, their crews dazed but unharmed. Admiral, one of the Rixon commanders called over the communication channel. What are your orders? Vex closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 3,000 ships and their crews pressing down on him. His career, his reputation, his empire's prestige, all of it would be damaged by what he was about to do. But the alternative was worse. All ships, he said finally, stand down. Accept assistance from the human rescue vessels. Prepare for withdrawal from human territory. The relief on his bridge was palpable. His officers began issuing orders to the fleet, coordinating with the human rescue ships to restore the neutralized vessels. The process took several hours, but by the end, all 3,000 ships were operational again. Captain Ross appeared on the main screen, his human features calm and composed. Admiral, your fleets are free to leave. We've provided navigation data for safe passage out of our territory. Your ships will not be followed or monitored. Captain, Vex said, struggling with words he had never expected to speak. We. Thank you. Admiral, Ross replied. In our culture, we have a saying, the strongest person is the one who shows mercy when they have the power to destroy. You and your people fought bravely. You have nothing to be ashamed of. What happens now? Vex asked. Now you go home, Ross said simply. You tell your people what you've seen. You help them understand that humanity doesn't want to be their enemy. And maybe, someday, when the fear and mistrust fade, we can meet again as friends instead of foes. The alien fleet began its withdrawal, ship by ship, formation by formation. The great alliance that had taken 2 years to build was dissolving. But not in defeat and understanding. Admiral Vex stood on his bridge, watching the human ship grow smaller on his screen. The Defiant remained motionless, making no move to follow or harass the departing fleet. It simply watched, a silent guardian ensuring safe passage for former enemies. "Sir," Thane said, "what do we tell the High Council?" Vex considered the question. How do you explain to a war council that their enemy had won by refusing to fight? How do you describe weapons that operated outside the laws of physics? How do you convey the strange honor of being defeated by someone who then helped you recover? "We tell them the truth," Vex said finally. "We tell them that humanity is not what we expected. And we tell them that perhaps it's time for the galaxy to try something new." As the last alien ship disappeared into hyperspace, Captain Ross smiled. The war was over, but more importantly, the peace was just beginning.